When we think of allocations of goods in a two-person, two-good exchange economy, we're really thinking of graphing points that have four components. Two that represent the allocation of the two goods to one individual, and two that represent the allocation of those two goods to the other individual. Graphing in 4 dimensions is tricky, but it turns out that the Edgeworth box is precisely that. We'll develop it here. In our example, my wife owns 10 oranges and 4 bananas. This forms her endowment bundle, and there's an indifference curve that passes through that bundle, with all bundles that lie above that indifference curve preferred to it. I, on the other hand, own 3 oranges and 6 bananas, which forms my endowment bundle, E1. There's similarly an indifference curve for me that passes through this endowment bundle, with all bundles that lie above this indifference curve preferred to what I own to begin with. The first thing we'll do to form an Edgeworth box is to take my wife's graph at the origin and flip that origin over to lie on the northeast corner of the graph rather than the southwest corner. We then take my graph and simply move it over to lie underneath the flipped version of my wife's graph. Finally, we'll move the flipped version of my wife's graph on top of mine and scoot it in until the endowment points for the two of us lie right on top of one another. We now have created an Edgeworth box for our little economy. Notice that by moving the endowment points on top of one another, we've created dimensions for the box that precisely correspond to the overall endowment of the economy. My wife started with 10 oranges, and I started with 3, making the horizontal length of the box 13, because there are 13 oranges overall in the economy. Similarly, my wife started with 4 bananas, and I had 6, giving us an overall number of 10, which is the vertical dimension of the Edgeworth box. Every point in the box then represents one possible way of dividing the economy's endowment between me and my wife. The endowment point is just one such possible way, with my share being read off of my axes and my wife's share being read off of her axes. Any other point in the box would be read exactly the same way, with my share being indicated on the lower axis and my wife's share on the upper axis.